Episode 3.
Episode 3, man.
Yeah, we at it.
What's up, brother?
What's up, man? Another week.
How was your week, man?
It was good. It was productive, I think. What did I try new this week? I tried my first capoeira. That's what I meant to tell you off camera.
Word.
And I was like, yeah, when you told me about your milestone and trying to step it up. Me, I was trying to do something more versatile, man. I've been, even though I got the personal trainer on deck, hopefully we see transformation week by week. But I still wanted to challenge myself to do something different. So the wife put me on, and this brother who's in Spain, and we did like a virtual situation, and it was cool. Man. I'm gonna try to keep at it. I want to be nice at it. I want to add another, tool to the kit and just break it out at the next party when this whole thing is like, yo, what's he doing? So.
Oh, that's dope. That's dope, man. That's dope.
Yeah, man. How them legs feeling after that?
My legs feel fine. My feet are another story. This walking journey thing is probably going to get out of hand.
How many miles are we on the books?
So for the day, 15 and a half. For the week, 80.
There we go. So 80 is the new normal?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like.
There you go.
That's what it's looking like.
80 is the new normal.
If I don't get 80 miles for the week, then it's safe to say that I'm slacking. Or I started going extra hard with like HIIT training or something else. But I don't know. Something about the walking thing, man, it just opened up something for me today. So I because normally I would do like 7-8 miles every day. Yeah. And I don't know. I just felt like I was just getting too comfortable with that. So
I mean, the cool thing about walking is like any of us can do it.
Right.
So it's like even on a busy day, lazy day, whatever you call it, just being able to get out there and get a little bit in is better than nothing. That's what we know. So pushing those miles. I mean, look, you see people do it every day, early in the morning, and it's like they doing it for a reason. Especially when you see them get up into the 60s and 70s, and it's like, oh, okay, this is about that longevity life.
Nah, you got to be about that life, man.
Yeah,
it's definitely important. I'm not getting any younger, and I actually want to look younger. I want to kind of keep Father Time away as long as possible. So the only way to do that is to get real serious about the fitness thing. It's long overdue.
Perfect. Fitness brings us to the title of this episode, which is why you see this infamous album, because we wanted to get a little creative with the titles.
Yes.
And the correlation to hip-hop culture or
indeed
all around. So Survival of the Fittest, episode 3.
Here we go.
Survival of the Fittest. First thing that comes to mind, what is it for you?
It means something different now than what it did when I was younger.
When you were wearing Timberlands?
Yeah.
What's it mean now?
Timberlands and stuff? Yeah. Now it's about, the work you put in. It's about being dedicated every day to the grind, and putting yourself in position to win at the highest level. And only those who are fit to survive the obstacles and the challenges that come your way as you're, chasing these aspirations, these goals, these dreams. Only those who are fit will survive. And so you have to train your mind, you have to train your body for everything that you hope to obtain. And I think that's, for me, that's where it is now. How about you?
Yeah, man, I think that the definition has become more clear to me in recent years. Like you said, when I was young, when I heard that statement, I only thought of like a physical thing. Mm-hmm. And obviously it was like something you would train for. What's interesting, what I would say now about Survival of the Fittest is it's not often what you even do to think you preparing for something. Mm-hmm. It's how you've naturally been prepared for something.
For sure.
By surviving.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, so it's like we have survived already, one thing or another, easily or hardship. Mm-hmm. You get through a certain point in life. Everybody got to where they are in life dramatically different story.
For sure.
Dramatically different backgrounds, economics. You have the wealthy, you have the poor, you have everything in the middle. Everybody required a certain type of ingredient to survive those times.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those times are easier, some of those times are harder. So when I think about survival of the fittest, especially now in this very current moment, the pandemic, various economic recessions we've been through, all these things, hardships, it started to dawn on me that if you're not new to hardship and you're not new to struggle, which is a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably handling things a lot differently, or possibly with a lot more confidence, or maybe even less worry.
For sure.
So to me, survival of the fittest almost became like an explanation for analyzing kind of everybody's personal journey and what they've been through.
Right.
And almost looking back at it, like the things I've been through have actually put me in a position to be possibly more confident in the present,
Mm-hmm.
more powerful. Just knowing for the fact that in many cases you made it against some certain segment of odds.
When you said that, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Like, man, so it's almost like having really good credit, right? In the sense that when you survive those hardships already, when you've already survived those challenges, it's like you're pre-qualified for anything that you could, hope to achieve, right? And so then that actually changes the perspective, right? Because then it's, again, like you said, it's not so much about the work as much as it is you've already done that. You've already done so much, like you've already earned that place. You've already accomplished so much just because you survived. And I think coming from those inner city communities, or coming from communities where there's poverty or there's lack or there's you're disenfranchised in any way, it qualifies you to succeed. And I don't think, oftentimes we even realize that, coming up in those situations, how much those situations actually prepare you to succeed at the highest level. Like, you already walk through the door with everything that you need. You have so many attributes that have been added to you over time, just based on what you've had to survive. And it's funny because even in my work with young people, I see that a lot of the kids who kind of have both parents, grow up in a loving home and kind of have the family situation together, it's a little bit harder for them to find confidence sometimes, right? It's a little bit hard because everything came so easy, right? So when they meet adversity, a lot of times they don't know how to respond to it. Whereas when you could take those kids and you could play against the kids from the inner city, it's like all they got is confidence.
Right.
That's what I mean? Like, they might not have the skill set.
That's for sure.
They might not even be coachable. But one thing they ain't lacking is confidence. Like, the kid that can't shoot is talking like he's Steph Curry. The kid that really ain't got no handle, but he could just move really fast and he's physical, you can't tell that kid he's not a superstar, right? And it's amazing how, man, those conditions can really prepare you and have you. No, that's interesting, man. That's an interesting take. Whoa, okay. So if we go off of that, then
yeah, I mean, look, it's a lot. It's a lot. So the crazy thing is like a lot of people got this and they probably never even looked at it as like, oh, that's my superpower kind of thing.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, people probably look at their problems and like, man, my life's so rough, man. When's it going to get better type of thing? But the thing is like, who would have thought the fact that you made it through some sort of rough patch or many years of rough patches is in fact a competitive advantage when you find yourself finally in a more comfortable environment.
Right.
So the stress you might have been used to economically, socially growing up, and then the stress you run into years later in sort of a business situation or corporate situation or dealing with professionals, it just feels like way smaller of a fire, if a fire at all, compared to the things you've seen and the things you've dealt with that just feels so more intense. Like again, that using that comparison of like, say, a war veteran coming back to civilian society, listening to people complain about stuff, it always, if you hear them speak, they're like, you people have it easy type mentality, right? And it's like, even though that's an extreme, and most people haven't been to a war, people have been through their own wars in life or whatever. So I think, but just even taking time to be like, you don't have to think for a long time, but just taking time to, like, if you were to create your own catalog of the things you've been through and how even some of the hardest things, as hard as they were, you were like, man, I made it through that. Somehow I made it through this. That in itself could be a confidence booster, especially when you find yourself elevated in a place where your peers, your demographic, your age, oftentimes may have come from a situation totally opposite of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, what did I do so right, or what did I do on a level of improvement that allowed me to excel to where I'm here, maybe even ahead of many people and other who had way more privilege or way more opportunities.
Right.
It's like, what changed? You know, what changed mentally? What changed from a sense of exposure to the point where you internalize, like, oh, it's a necessity for me to survive. I know this is what I was born into. I know this is my environment. But something in the mind has to travel further than what I'm seeing. And that seems to be something that really drives or pushes people to go way beyond what they're seeing. It's almost like it's what you don't see, but at least what you can envision, that kind of creates that drive.
Yeah.
A bit.
I think I'm gonna be honest, man. That superpower was activated when I'm not even thinking about it. As you were talking, I was thinking, man, I remember feeling crazy at the height of the pandemic because I didn't feel worried. Like, I felt like everything that they were saying we were gonna have to do, I'd already lived like that for years. Right? You figure growing up in these communities, you pretty much are social distancing because you don't have access to other communities. You know, even other black communities, because of the safety issues, you know, just that's not your neighborhood. You can't really be over there like that, right? So you've already been social distancing. Then you know, within these communities, you got to kind of know who to stay away from and you know, who you can be around, right? But then outside of that, you kind of cut off from the outside world. Like, growing up in my neighborhood, you had to go through so many layers before you could even touch the outside world, right? You figure whatever struggle you had in your household, then you come out of your household, you're in the hallway, and as you're in that hallway, you may encounter, you know, some crackheads, you may encounter, you know, some dealers, you may encounter prostitution. It's a whole bunch of things you may encounter. That's before you even get to the elevator or the stairs.
Right.
When you get in the stairs, there's a whole nother list of things that you may encounter. You know, you come out of the elevator or down the stairs, and now you're in the lobby, and there's a whole list of other things that you encounter in that lobby. And you can leave out the building, but you're still in that community. So there's so many obstacles that you have to get over before you could even touch the outside world, before you could even get to where, like, things are quote unquote normal. And we don't even realize this, right? We don't even realize how this qualifies us. Like, being able to navigate that qualifies us for a level of success that I don't think we even realize that we can tap into. Like, we have this superpower. Like, there's times where I can be in a room and just understand how to read people just based on survival, right? There's times that I can be in the midst of a situation and your survival instincts kick in. Like, oh, I know what to do here.
Yeah.
You know, just in life in general. Like, I know what to do. Like, I was never afraid of, like, having to eat peanut butter and jelly or tuna fish or ramen noodles. It's just like, I know how to hook these ramen noodles up.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys is worried about.
Make
like,
it work.
Even the toilet tissue thing had me tripping. Like,
Yeah.
You guys worried about toilet tissue right now? Like, that's what we on? Yeah. So
which it says a lot. It says a lot about what people have and have not been through. Because it's like, yeah, you study people's behaviors. We saw it in the headlines. Yeah, people's really tripping.
Yeah.
And you know, it says a lot about, you know, what is survival exactly, and who would or can make it out here when times get rough. But then to jump ahead of that, it's almost like, well, we know life's going to throw curveballs at all times, really. And so, to me, the biggest lesson about survival of the fittest is like those who survive are those who adapt to just about anything, and those who adapt in such a way where the fact that they have to adapt isn't seen or met with negativity. It's just it is what it is.
Right.
It's like it is what it is.
You're not taking anything personal.
Yeah, it's not personal. It's not so much emotional. It's like this is in fact how life works.
Yeah, I think that's probably why. And let me just say this: like I grew up in Park Hill, Staten Island, New York, at the height of the crack epidemic. Right. I currently live in Westfield, New Jersey. On paper, I'm not supposed to be able to make that transition. On paper, I shouldn't be there.
Right.
So I don't care if I don't have the biggest house. I don't care if I don't have the most luxurious car. I don't care about any of that because I know what it looks like on paper. And so rather than be, threatened by someone whose house might be 3 times the size of the house that I live in, I'm laughing because I'm saying you let me catch up. I wasn't supposed to be even in the same neighborhood as you, like right. we weren't supposed to be neighbors based on where I came from and what the statistics say. We're not supposed to be neighbors. I should never see you. You should never see me. So, and here's the thing, you're stopping, like you're comfortable. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pass this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm just stopping through. Like that's it. Like this is not my forever place. Like I'm gonna move on to something beyond this. And so I think when we start to play that game, with ourselves, when we start to play that game and starting to look at it and say, hey, it was set up so that we don't win. It was set up so that we don't, and that's why you got to be careful if you go too far on the complaining side, right? When you start to talk about how difficult it is and how we get that. Mm-hmm. It ain't gonna change though. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna magically become equal or fair or necessarily better. So the only thing that we can do is, like you say, adapt to the situation and try to figure out, how to not even necessarily make the best of it, but figure out how to beat this thing, by relying on yourself, digging within, and saying, all right, this is how it's going to happen. This is how it's going to play out. I think if we do that, it's a whole different ball game at that point.
Yeah, I agree. Because basically what you're saying is, again, how do you, if this whole conversation was like geared in a way where the theme is, yes, survival of the fittest, how do you become one who survives among the fittest? Mm-hmm. The how, it seems like, is a part of the adaptation, which we discussed, and sort of being able to adapt to a larger range of things. Mm-hmm. Another level of that, what I'm hearing is accountability, personal accountability, because when you take ownership of whatever happens next, good or bad, up or down, it's on you. And so that peace of mind and taking something personal in a way where you're taking ownership of what happens next or the decisions you make. To me, it may feel like more pressure or more responsibility to some. Mm-hmm. To me, it's more peace of mind because you know exactly who's in control of the situation.
Yeah.
So responsibility also comes with an element of power. Mm-hmm. So if something falls in your hands, even in a situation of hardship, basically it's like you're controlling your own destiny and possibly the destiny of others. Yeah. You have that power with that hardship. So essentially it's like challenges and hardships are really just opportunities.
That's it.
To practice how good you are at surviving.
I say this to my young people all the time, right? Obstacles are opportunities to show your greatness. That's really all it comes down to. Adding to what you just said, though, it also teaches you how to view fear, right? Like I spent a large part of my life in fear, right? But I realized that, courage isn't necessarily not being afraid. It's recognizing that you are afraid and going through it anyway.
Absolutely.
It's not one of those things where it's like, no, if if you're courageous, then you're never afraid. No, that's not true. You know, there were times in my life that I was afraid often, and still now, still afraid of what if this doesn't happen, right? Like you think about that, but then it's like, but what if it does? Like, and that what if it does is way stronger than what if it doesn't.
Right. But the what if and doesn't often gets all the attention.
Right.
Or is sort of the all that someone needs to hear before they dismiss, say, a new idea or a new path or something like that. And so, survival of the fittest. If I was to break it all down, another thing is like going in your own direction.
Yeah.
Because or being what is it as Goggins puts it, being the uncommon among the uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, people are fit, but it's like, who's going to go the extra mile for the sake of going the extra mile?
Right.
Just for the sake of seeing, like, what I can do. So it's like, yeah, you did 80 miles week after week. And you're like, you know what? That's not, I'm on 120s.
Yeah.
Or now I'm on 200s. It's like, just to see.
Just to see.
See what's possible. What's the worst that's going to happen? My bad cramps, bad whatever. At least I find out just how far I could push the button.
You can go.
And so I think pushing yourself, challenging yourself on purpose for the sake of it is definitely a way to survive the things that you won't see coming.
Yeah, it's like a mindset shift for real.
Yeah, it's like mental preparation.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Because if you're thinking about these things and you're pushing yourself through things and creating these challenges, putting yourself in challenging situations on purpose, you beat it.
Mm-hmm.
You beat it. Because now when the spontaneous ones come, you're not shook off your feet. You know, you know exactly how to handle it. And sometimes it's almost like what you call what do they call, like, the flight training? What is that called? Simulation.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
flight
you can simulate those things
so life
just by playing it out.
Yeah,
life simulation. Yeah, it's like you can simulate it and also survive through that way. And so it's crazy. I got, like, you know, being a filmmaker, you have a crazy imagination. I'm like, I've thought about scenarios where it's like, all right, on some like Jet Li, Jackie Chan stuff, like, all right, if this dude starts wilding, what am I going to use as a weapon? And then am I going to jump off of that joint? And then if this dude, I'm like playing them, I was like, okay, I could probably take about 5 of these dudes and not, you know what I'm saying? Like just on some weird stuff, but it's like, okay, I think I could survive a potential rare scenario where something happens on a train. I'm like, okay. And it's like, I have no reason to think about that, but I'm thinking about it because it's like, hey, this is New York. You got to be ready anyway. So, so I was like, I'll play out things like that. Or if I'm driving on the road, I'm like, yeah, that car looked like they kind of tripping. Like, maybe what would I do if this truck just randomly swerve off the road? This 18-wheel, I'm like, I'm ready. Like, I see a space over there, so I'm going to just, like, always thinking like that. And a lot of that comes from almost having those accidents. Like, oh, snaps, this train is about to hit me or whatever. So it's like just playing with it, just playing with these ideas in real time. I feel like it's always giving me very sharp instincts. Yeah. Just like sharp instincts in terms of
we used to call it, you know, getting punched. We used to call it getting snuffed, right? So you don't want life to snuff you.
Right.
Like, you know, you don't want to ever, you sneaking me? Like, you don't ever want life to give you that experience. And it's funny because my life has caused me to do the same thing, right? Like how I hold on to money now. You know, what the things that I do with money. It's just like, it's in preparation of, not saying that I'm necessarily banking on like something going wrong, but I want to be ready, you know, because things do happen, right? Like life be lifing, no matter what, right? So I want to make sure that I'm prepared. I'm not planning for things to go wrong, but I'm prepared if they do. That's it. Like,
yeah. And if they do, you can lose. You don't lose your cool. You don't lose your balance.
No, like I got something for that. That was cool.
Yeah, definitely. College was funny because college showed me, you know, despite being like broke with mad student loans and stuff like that, just how much I started to appreciate some of my advantages about being around some of my peers. I had friends and roommates who, like, they never did so many things for themselves, like cook food. Just cook some raw food. I'm like, you don't know how to cook this. You don't know how to make that. I'm like, what you mean you don't know how to make this? Like,
man, I went through the same thing, man.
Like, it was just shocking to me. Like,
teaching guys how to wash clothes,
just basic stuff,
basic
man.
stuff.
Yeah,
like,
man. Like,
basic survival.
It's crazy. I was like, yo, how you make it this far? Like, I'm thinking how you make it here, and they're like, this is the beginning for them. People used to stand over my shoulder like, what did you add to that? I'm like, it's pepper, man. Like, what are you talking about? Like, oregano. You never seen like, what are you talking about? Like, what is that? Like, well, you be cooking? I'm like, what you talking?
So there was one year where, you know, my home situation was so crazy. It didn't even make sense to go back home for Thanksgiving because it was just like, we just didn't do that.
Yeah,
you know, we just wasn't having a big Thanksgiving dinner. So it was just like, man, chill here, right? Like, just chill here.
Yeah, yeah.
So this happened 2 years in a row. The first year, I'm not going to lie, I went to Boston Market, and I just had a Boston Market Thanksgiving, man. I'm not going to lie.
The lack of flavor. It's bland. I could taste the blandness. Oh, I can't taste it, but I remember what that bland tastes like. Bro.
Yeah, man. It was real.
You got to add hot sauce to everything, but go ahead.
I promised myself this was going to be the last time that I did that, right? So the next year, I remember I had an off-campus apartment, and I was like, I knew a couple of people that were in the area as well. They didn't go home as well, and it was just like, you know, whether they were working or whatever the case may be. So I just remember like whipping up this massive Thanksgiving dinner, and it was like the first time that I'd ever cooked at like this, like, you know, a full spread, and nobody could believe that I made this food. Like, there's no way you made this food. There's no way you cooked this. Like, who did you get this from? What spot was open that you picked this food up from? I'm like, nah, man, like, this baked macaroni and cheese, this turkey, this is all, it's all me. I did it.
It's like, whose grandma made this?
I could not believe it, man, right? And so, I mean, I had greens, I had everything.
Right.
And that actually, like, sparked the cooking bug. Like, I started, like, cooking crazy after that. Before, it was just to eat.
Gotta eat.
I have to eat, so I'm cooking. But at that point, it became like a passion. Like, nah, I want to see if I can cook this, or I want to see if I can mess with that.
And it's funny because we talking about food and all that stuff, but it's like, I mean, that is survival. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a big deal because you think about so many people now, even at this very moment, they weak with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't really got too many recipes. Like, I study people. I listen. I'm like, what you make? What you make? You know, how you do it? How you prepare it? He's like. Nah, that sound
no way.
That sounds so weak. That sound plain.
I'm not eating that.
I was like, I'll be listening. You skipped a step. You skipped the cleaning part. You know, you're supposed to clean that, right? So like, but you hear it, you peep game. You're like, okay. So, and when you look at, like, you know, on a serious note, like all the takeout food that is happening right now on the phone. So when you talk about survival, you know, what happens if the app crashes? What happens if, again, we get a second, third, fourth, fifth round of this pandemic thing? It's like, you know what? We don't even want people making your food. Just make your own food, whatever. You just see it, like, people fall apart. So it's like, when you think about old school survival, like, you know what I'm saying, indigenous vibe, it's like you're cooking, you're going to get your food, you're killing, whatever it is, shelter. It's those basic things. I think how we evolve, it's like all of those same things, but on a futuristic level. We have to operate at a whole nother level. What I hear sort of from all of this is, again, to me, what stands out the most is this accountability. Accountability because you measure up to it.
Right.
You know, we as people, we make choices. We have a choice to make every single situation. And I think it's a lot of it is a great deal of it is the mental.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about times of surviving, you know, times when we was broke, times when things was rough, and all of that is like a real serious preparation. But what I think what prepares you the most is the desire to constantly want something that's way bigger and better than what you've encountered.
Yeah.
And so much so that it controls the things you're even willing to tolerate from yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, so you said that you don't want to be snuffed by life. If I was snuffed by life or person in life, I'm the type of person, I would blame myself more than anything. I would be less mad at the person. I'd be like, man, how you let that happen?
How you let that happen?
And I take that same thing, like that same mentality, and take it across the board. Like I try to be 100% just accountable for whatever going down. And a lot of times, to be honest, I mean, there's times in a place where you should ask for help. There's many times I never sought help because I just wanted to see how I was going to get myself out of something. Let's put myself in danger is one thing. But I mean, yeah, speaking of college, easily remember being like super broke, minus back in the day. You go to the ATM, it's like, oh, dag, like I didn't even know I spent like a minus. Okay, and then getting a phone call like, hey, how you doing in school? You need anything? I'm like, no, I'm good.
Yep.
I have no idea where the next whatever's coming from, other than like this minimum wage job that's going to take multiple checks to catch up from the minuses that keep going in. I'm like, I'll figure it out. And it never dawned on me, like, you know, I still didn't worry that much. I'm like, so what? I don't eat for a couple of days. That's all good. I ain't gonna die from that. Like I can get some bread or whatever somewhere. So to me, it was just like that extreme accountability. And the last part, it was like in my mind, I'll tell you that story of like how I had friends doing the whole EBT card thing, and they were telling me and like, oh man, if you need this or need that, you should get one of these. And call it pride, ego, whatever. But in my mind, I couldn't even allow myself to do that, even when I was probably on paper justified to do so. But in my mind, I was like, I can't do it. Same. I was like, I have a job. I should be able to figure this out. No, and I was like, it's my fault. My account's in the negative anyway. It was like, it shouldn't be in a negative. So I just got to get better at what I'm doing at this little job and manage it better. Like, I don't think I'm in a situation where I'm even deserving of that. Like, so I don't even want it. And I was just willing to put it out. And I think putting that pressure on myself was a good thing. And I'm glad I put that pressure on myself because it prepared me for thousands of other things that came after that, just that same pressure.
Yeah, man, because, you know, again, coming from where I come from, when you've gone to the store, a lot of times with purple bills and brown bills and green bills, the monopoly money, it does something to you. I can remember standing outside of the store and waiting until everyone left out of the store.
Yeah.
Like, and then like getting in trouble for taking too long to go to the store, but being too embarrassed to go into the store and also too afraid to tell my mom why it took me so long to go to the corner store.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I waited outside for like an hour and then, you know, rushed the cashier like, yo, hurry up. Like, I don't even want anyone to see this transaction taking place, man. Like, hurry up with this money. Give me this change so I can go on my way. You're taking too long.
Yeah.
Right. So, and this is young. This is young. I had the presence of mind, you know, to even understand this. And I'll joke with people and say like, man, it was hard for me to, in my adult years, add water to my daily routine. Because as a kid, all we had in the house was water. And I can remember sitting at the table, promising myself, I will never have water in my fridge when I'm older. I'm going to always have juice, right?
When you really need the water.
Listen, man, my first apartment, there was no condiments in the fridge at all. Every shelf was Gatorade, some kind of juice like orange juice or something. It was just different options of drinks. It looked like someone's concession stand in my fridge because I was determined I'm not messing with this water, man. So this is the hardship, right? That you have to deal with. And so like to this day, man, I'm still like, I gotta remind myself, man, you gotta drink water, man. Like you gotta drink the water. Like chill out.
Need it. The body needs it. Yes, sir. I see you though. You wanted to like, you know, step it up in life. You felt like you know.
Yeah, that was a big deal for me. That was definitely
some
a big
variety,
deal.
Some color in there, you know.
Absolutely, man. It's no way. Like I think when you come up off of that, man, bro, I can literally remember having like powdered milk in the house.
Word.
And just being like,
I remember that.
This is horrible, man. Like there's no way. Like I never want to go through this again. And so even when in my adult years, bro, I've like been on my last, man, and I've done things that I thought I would never do in my young adult life. Like literally like criminal activity, bro.
Yeah.
Literally like not having enough money and it's like, okay, I got the money for the spaghetti, I got the money for the sauce, but not enough for this ground beef.
Right.
Self-checkout.
Yeah.
Like,
It got down. It got down to that point.
Yep. Right. And I'm not proud of it. But
yeah.
It was like, I'm not going to this welfare spot. I'm not trying to get this EBT. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it, man.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fittest,
yeah,
bro.
It's like any means necessary.
I'm not encouraging anybody to steal.
It's
I'm not.
No, I mean, it was a code of ethics there. You know, it wasn't grand
I
larceny.
paid for 2 of the 3 items.
Yeah.
All right? Like, just be clear.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, there's still a code of ethics with that, man. And I think it's definitely some intense levels to it, like how we've all. I mean, it's funny because the cool thing is like we can sit and laugh about stuff that people might view as like some of the worst moments of their life or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, those days were rough, but it was like this idea of just not getting lost in those moments and looking at them as like a permanent state.
Right.
So I think that constant looking ahead and working for something beyond what you see, I think is a key thing, because we can get real sucked up into the stress of something.
Right.
And so survival is that constant adaptation and peacefulness to just really to grow. It's like a constant level of growth, and it comes with the pressure, and it comes with different pressure points. But yeah, man, I think it's something important. I could see survival of the fittest being just an ongoing thing, because there's so many ways we could discuss it and share different people's stories who've gone through various things, but still come out of it.
Definitely
over
levels
and over,
to it. Yeah, man. Again, I just want to reiterate this. I'm not encouraging anyone to hit the self-checkout for the sole purpose of hiding products. That was a rough time, and I'm never going back to that. But I learned so much in that time. I learned a lot about myself, and I learned what I was made of, right? Like those hard times really built a lot of character, because I could remember being like walking home and saying to myself, like, when I get out of this, I'm never coming back to this. Like, I'm going to put certain things in place that make sure that I never come back to this. And I think one of the biggest ways I was able to do that is what we talked about off the air before, like in one of our conversations. And it literally comes down to history repeating itself, because we live in the past, right? Like, I was so fixated on where I wanted to be that what happened to me or where I was stopped mattering after a while. Right. And the only thing that I could see is where I wanted to go. And that just became my focus. Like, I'm not even even in my music, like, I stopped talking about what I went through.
Yeah.
And I started talking about where I am now and what I want.
What you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think fear and even anger and frustration, again, I think they can all be bad things in a moment, but good things for the future, because they kind of guide you in terms of your own principles, and they add this sort of gas to the tank that you might not otherwise have. So you're getting ahead in life despite the past you've had. It's a race. It's competitive. It's so many things in so many different places. Now you find yourself toe-to-toe, head-to-head with somebody who's had mad opportunities along the way, and you learn this, and you're talking with them. Maybe they're your affiliate, they're your business partner, whatever, and it's like you're starting to see year by year, day by day, just how so many things might have went smoothly and easier, and you're like, whoa, like, that's crazy. I didn't know that exists. I didn't know that exists. I didn't know there were resources for this and resources for that. I didn't know you did that. Interesting. Then you have to go, to yourself, and you look and you're like, man, I got this far. They got that far, even without this aid, without this help. And I think that fear of being broke or being something that you feel you just don't want to be, or the anger that comes from it, can become a very positive thing. You can basically what I'm saying is throughout the survival, you can transform fear and even negativity into positivity.
For sure.
It's like it's an extreme fuel. And you can learn a lot from other people's mistakes. You can learn a lot like, oh, that person does drugs. I see what they're doing. Not me. That person had an early baby or the other situation. I don't want that either. And it's like those became fears, but then they also became ways that you can survive by not going down those same paths. It's like so much so it was like they were like your principles. They were like a super, super strong code of ethics.
I could promise you, man, like I don't drink and I don't smoke because I was around drinkers and smokers all the time.
Yeah.
And sure. There was just certain things that I didn't want. You know, I come from, family members struggling with addictions. There was just certain things that I didn't want,
Absolutely.
In my life. A lot of things that I just refused to do based on, those experiences, man, that I would see, and hey, I don't want no parts of that. I don't want that struggle. I got enough struggle. I don't need that struggle too, and so definitely life was a great teacher for me when it came to that. Like it's like struggle made me stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, contrary to what folks may feel like they've been surrounded by, things that have happened to them, things they've seen, exposure. I think, take this, not just from us, but from many, many great people. A lot of people you'll find who are motivational to you were willing to change themselves from within, change their mentality, change the way they look at things, which is their overall perspective, but also change in the sense of environment, the information they were taking in, the information they would then put back out. It's a constant refinement, that really seems to be the key of how people not just survive, but thrive and succeed. Is one thing. The thing is, we don't want to just survive. Surviving is the easy part,
right.
Especially where we are now at this point in the future. We should be way beyond surviving.
Yeah, we should
but
be
the fact
thriving.
is, not everybody is.
Right.
Crazy as it is. So if survival is still something people are still trying to do, that only goes to show how much information they lack connected to a particular type of desire or being able to feed that. And so there's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be learned. But I think one thing's for sure is we as individuals have to constantly be pushing ourselves to places and boundaries. Even if there's no external pressure or force to do it, then we have to put that pressure on ourselves. But we have to put that pressure on ourselves if we want to see a life that's even more than just surviving.
Yes.
And even if we don't have a personal coach or personal this or personal that, we got to become that. It's like a duality in the mind. It's like you are who you are, but you know what you're supposed to be. So that person you're supposed to be is supposed to push the person you are constantly. And the only way to and you don't get new results unless you put something new within you to then transform who you are. A person can completely transform their life just by the information that they put in the brain. They can become almost a whole new person by deleting the old stuff, put that in the recycle bin, and then put all new information. And it's like, and then a constant evolution. And so I think that's really, they call it evolution in science. It's like, this is how we really survive. And now more than ever, it's a good time to just really self-reflect.
I think on that note, we can wrap it because that was it right there, brother. There's nothing coming after that.
But let's call it part one, because I feel like this joint, it could go on and on. So
definitely,
Survival of the Fittest, part one.
Part one.
Thanks for watching.
Peace.